On this episode of Shareable Science, where we currently stand with the pandemic, a look back and a look ahead. Welcome to Shareable Science. Science you can share. "16 months ago, we started Shareable Science Beyond the Blog. It was in the early days of the pandemic in America when information was coming at us so quickly. And the goal in bringing these videos to you was to cut through the jargon and make the science understandable and explain what we did know and what we didn't. Today, we're in a very different place in America with the pandemic. That's not to say that it's over, but case counts are lower, hospitalizations and deaths are lower. It's a different time. And this will be the last video in the Beyond the Blog COVID series. So with that in mind, let's look at some key things that we've learned, some reflections, and then what are some things we need to think about as we move forward. So 4 main points. The first one, we still don't have all the answers. If you have watched any of these with any kind of regularity, you know that there are always more questions than there are answers when it comes to SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19. Here are 5 key things that we still don't have a full understanding of. Why are there such a wide range of different outcomes, from people who never have any symptoms at all to people who end up in the hospital or on ventilators or who pass away? What are the best treatments, and are there ways we can stratify and determine who is the best candidate for each of those treatments? What about long COVID? It's estimated that 10% of the individuals that develop symptomatic COVID go on to have long COVID. This is going to be with us for a while, and we have to figure out how to manage this. How long are we going to have immune protection? Are we talking 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And then what are the impacts of the new variants going to be? As the virus continues to evolve, will we reach a point where it becomes more like seasonal cold, or will it go the other direction and we'll find ourselves facing a whole fresh set of challenges? Something else that we've seen in the process is the pandemic has put the full process of science on display. You've watched scientists scramble to gather data, make initial decisions or initial conclusions, and then gather additional data and find that those initial conclusions didn't hold anymore. And at times it's felt very chaotic, but that's actually the way science works when we're starting with something we don't have a whole lot of information around. That is both the messiness and the beauty of the process of gathering data and making conclusions, and then seeing if additional data allow that conclusion to hold up or if it has to be changed. That also means you've sometimes seen when scientists didn't agree on things, when they found themselves on opposite ends of the conversation. We've seen a whole lot of correlation. I had some people that I gave this to and they got better. That's not the same as causation. You have to do the studies to determine the difference between these 2 things happened at the same time and this causes that. We in our society do a really poor job of distinguishing between correlation and causation, and that's often to our detriment. And then perhaps for me, as a scientist and a science communicator, the most frustrating thing has been watching the spread of misinformation. We said early on in an episode specifically around misinformation, that in the middle of a pandemic, misinformation actually spreads faster than the virus does. Take the time to fact check. If you see something that seems a little weird, look to see how other people have interpreted it. And look to people that interpret things that are outside of the traditional audiences where you go for your news and for your information. All right, the next 2 are what happens now. I cannot stress enough the importance of being prepared. This is not the first pandemic that we have had in 100 years. This is actually the 3rd SARS-like pandemic that we've dealt with in about 2 decades. So it's likely that we're going to see these again, which means we have to follow the motto of be prepared. We need ongoing surveillance, testing, and we need collaboration with researchers around the world to identify emerging viruses of concern and to be able to track them around the world. We also need a better sense of what works, so we don't apply a sledgehammer and shut everything down if there are more precise tools that we can use that will better allow us to contain the spread. We also have to think about how we move more quickly. And if we can contain spread early, then we can minimize the broader impact. I gotta say, through this process, we have seen the success of science. Yes, it was slow in the beginning. Yes, it was challenging, but we have scienced our way to this point, and we will continue to use the power of science to go forward. And then my last point, your personal pandemic experience is not the universal pandemic experience. You may have been inconvenienced by COVID-19. It may have been something that was frustrating to you. You never got sick. You don't know anybody that got ill. The person next to you in the checkout line at the grocery store, the person in the car in front of you on the freeway, they may have lost multiple family members to COVID-19. Or they may have lost their job because of the fallout in response to how we dealt with COVID-19. Not everyone has the same experience as you. And as you step out back into the world, carry a little bit of empathy with you in the way you talk about the pandemic and the way that you interact with those around you. And then lastly, I just want to say a word of gratitude. I am so grateful to my employer, the HudsonAlpha Institute for Biotechnology, for allowing me to take time away from the other parts of my job to research and prepare and put these videos together. It's an incredible service, and I am grateful that they have allowed me to do that. Thank you to the communication team at HudsonAlpha, to the folks that have stood behind the camera, to the people that have put the videos together and posted the videos and helped me deal with the questions that have come from that. This is by no means a one-person show. It has been a team effort. I want to say thank you to all the folks that have sponsored this, that have provided the funding to allow this work to go forward. Thank you for that investment in providing science education to our community. And lastly, I want to thank you, our viewers. You have invited me into your home or your office, on your phone or on your tablet or your computer for 16 months. And you've allowed me to provide content to you, to be one of the voices that you take in where you gather information. I do not take that trust lightly, and I appreciate that. This is not the end of our video conversations. We'll move on to other topics at other points down the road. And so while I will say thank you for watching, I will also say I look forward to seeing you again on another educational episode where we talk about science. Thank you, and take care.